So, Oscars, the Fresh Prince across Chris Rock's face. Let's talk about that controversial thing. Okay, let's go to the beginning. Chris Rock said something, I would say, pretty harsh, even though he's a comedian. Lots of comedians have said far worse things, although I don't think the comparison is all that relevant myself. And look, there's going to be mixed opinions on Chris Rock's point of view and Will Smith's, which I'll get into in a second. But I think even though it's kind of light compared to a lot of typical comedy stuff, and it's kind of expected for there to be a bit of a roasting. So if you don't like that, don't go. But then it's an award ceremony, and he's nominated, so you should be able to go. You know what I mean? So there's confliction, because the whole point in a comedy show is if you aren't willing to take it, if you ain't got the thick skin to listen to offensive humour, depending on the comedian, you kind of have an idea of what to expect, so you should know whether it's for you to go or not. And the reason we have them places is because people who are thick-skinned can have a laugh that is fair game in that environment. And if people are upset by it, fine, you don't have to go. If it's a bit more open in public, then it's kind of like, well, not everyone can take it, and we have to take that into account, like if you're a comedian. So being on one hand award ceremony place or whatever, I don't really give a shit about it myself, but if you're nominated, you should be able to go. Comfort to a degree. You should always expect comfort from life in general and shit, but when it's offensive sort of comedy and roasting, so to speak, the idea is you're supposed to have certain environments where it's for that. So if you go and you get offended, it's your fault for not being self-aware enough to know that you would get offended. And if you've got a problem with it, stand up and walk out. That's fine. When it's a bit more public and the whole world's watching, it's no longer that safe space as such. So there's sort of confliction around that. Second thing I want to say, the reason I find it a bit harsh, I'm not saying like he shouldn't have said it as such, because I think, was it crossing the line? I think it was just on the line, just pushing it a little bit, because the reason I say that, even though it seems light, is because he was directly going after something that is unfortunate of an individual that's not in their control, right? Like, if you mock someone for being skinny because, I don't know, if it was Matthew McConaughey or something, for one, he seems like a guy who could take a fucking joke. But he was being skinny for a film, as he's done, I think, probably multiple roles. And you took the piss out of him being skinny, it'd be fair game. It'd be like, ooh, tongue in cheek, but it'd be fair game, because it's sort of in his control and the choice to do it, even though, but if it was like general anorexia or something, which that's somewhat in their control, controllable but not really guided, so that's not the best example. But look, if someone had a mole on their face, like Robert De Niro or something, you started ripping to a mole in his face, that's a bit more like, maybe you'd laugh at it. Some people would, some people won't. The point is, it's a bit more, I wouldn't say it's bullying if it's a roasting and everyone knows it's there as a roasting, but it's still kind of like, I would argue, not that you shouldn't be able to joke about that stuff, but if you are going to joke about something that's unfair, in a way that isn't really in their control or their choice, and it's not like a flaw they could do something about, then I think you are at the risk of getting smacked in the mouth. You shouldn't be surprised if that happens, if someone can't take and gets upset. That's the thing, you are pushing the boundary to see who will take it, who won't. And again, I think that's what comedians kind of do. They push the line a little bit and see what can be crossed and what can't. It's what makes it so interesting and exciting, and that the safe comedy is usually the most boring, family friendly Butlins crap, you know what I mean? So, but I'm not going to get into whether it's funny or not. So that's just woman's opinion. I suppose the whole video is actually, but you know, point is, yes, comedians should be able to make fun of people for stuff like that, but you can't then play victim if you get smacked in the face for it if someone can't take it, because you're taking that risk, and you have to acknowledge that that's your gamble to make. Now, that doesn't mean it's justified of Will Smith to have gone up and smacked him like that. I mean, aside from the fact that he was laughing in the first place, or whether he was laughing because he felt he had to and it was a mask for the whole show or whatever, I'm not even going to get into that. He shouldn't have smacked him, period, right? I think he even said himself in a post that he weren't in his best self. He was in a highly emotional state. He regrets it. He publicly apologised to Chris online, though, rather than when he actually accepted the award and apologised to Candy, which is a bit kind of cringy. So yeah, if he had dealt with it in a more verbal way, like, look, that you're targeting something that's unfair and out of our control. We've been through a lot of emotional shit, so you know, keep that shit out your mouth. Then it would have been like, okay, fair enough. I explored. I stepped a line. Didn't realise you were so. Like, I wasn't sure if you could laugh about it, but it turns out you're not ready for that shit. You've been through a lot. Fair enough. Now I understand. I'll move on. Same if there's a guy at a pub, right, and he's sort of ripping into people. Some people find it hilarious. If someone takes a piss out of me, like the height, so that, like, oh, okay, motherfucker, I'll give it a bit back. But it's playful, you know what I mean? But then if someone's getting upset about it, you then have to back off and be like, oh shit, so look, try and have a laugh, try and have fun. Kind of was a bit of your expense, but if you can't take it and it's upsetting you, I'm not here. I don't want you to have shit time. We don't want you to have shit time just so we can have a laugh by ripping shit at you. So if it's going to be that way, then fair enough. Now I know. I'll back off. My bad. And you move on. Not a problem. You know, you can still clink beers and be friends at the end of it, even if they upset you. You know what I mean? If you don't provoke it by smacking them, like, that's starting to fucking bath, like, you know. So no, you shouldn't hit him. But at the same time, I want to say I understand it. I'm not saying it's the right thing to do, but I understand it. Like, let's not pretend, you know, because we're all pointing the finger going, oh, we're disgusted with him and all this stuff, and especially when he's supposed to be this great public figure. It's like, well, no one's Jesus, right? We're all human. We all have emotional states. You know, we all have times where we're not our best selves. So let's not pretend like, you know, there's that line in Scarface, it's like, you need people like me so you can point your big dirty finger and say, yeah, he's the bad guy. And the reason it says that is, like, it's so easy to disregard our own poor behaviour if someone else is being, you know, showing poor behaviour, especially if it's slightly worse than something you've done. You know, you might have got angry and shouted at a work colleague, you know, maybe you didn't hit him, but you lost your cool, you know what I mean? But I never hit anyone, so he's really bad, you know what I mean? It's like, man, don't act like you're a saint. You're not Jesus, you know what I mean? And if you was, you wouldn't be judging and pointing the finger that way. So yeah, I say, fucking hell, shit happens, you know? It's not that big a deal. I don't think it's really newsworthy. The only reason I'm bringing it up is because I think the lines in between that are a bit blurry and the division of opinions on it was quite interesting. Can't really give a crap about celebrity red carpet stuff, to be honest, you know. I like the movies that they're in, but that's as far as I care for it, really. Yeah, it's weird seeing the zebra from Madagascar get bitch slapped, but, you know, hitch slapped. But yeah, so I will say fair play for him to eventually apologising and being reflective. That's the most important thing. That's far more important than just finally, yeah, well, you deserved it. You know what I mean? Because that's what you do when you're in an emotional state. When you're able to step back, calm yourself down, reflect, and go, I didn't handle that as the man I want to be, or I'm trying to be. And he said, like, I like the point. I still have work to do on myself as a man. I think we all do. Always should be trying to push to develop. Maybe not 100% of the time, but always keep it in check at the end of the day. Yeah. So I think my point is, it goes back to punishment versus forgiveness, and it's like, well, punishment for the sake of punishment is kind of just this whole justice thing. It's just another form of revenge. Instead of eye for an eye, it's a Chinese burn for an eye. And it's like, well, he done this, so I'm gonna do that, and it's justified because he deserved it, kind of thing. Like, no, that's not what it's about. There should be some kind of consequence, dare I say, a type of punishment, because it sets the example on a societal level, so that people can't get away with whatever they want to go. What you're going to do? Forgive me, which is kind of why forgiveness alone is kind of petty and weak and naive. But you need better both. You need the consequence, and then forgiveness as well. Not just be like. My point is, a lot of people seem to be pointing the finger at him and going, "Oh, he's supposed to be this guy. Claims to be." I don't think he's claimed to be a great guy. I think people just interpret him as a great guy for valid reasons. Let's not take away that he has interest in, how I say, teachings. I don't know. He tries to be a good role model to his kids, and I suppose people take him that way when he's in interviews and whatever. So let's not remove that and see him only as a bad guy for this one moment. That no single moment of anyone's life should define them. We're all complex humans. We've all got good and bad and great moments and great stories and shit moments and shit stories. So the point is, it goes back to redemption, in that you need a bit of punishment, and then once you've served that punishment, then we need a bit of forgiveness, so they can reflect and go, okay, I know not to do that again. And I want to look into myself, how to better myself, so I can walk the path of redemption to become better and set the example from there. And the only way we can do that is by acknowledging, like, yeah, you fucked up there. We all know it. You see it now too. Cool. We're all on the same page. You've got to go through the shame and embarrassment. You've got to apologise to Chris and all that sort of stuff. Realise you can't always be the person you try to be, that I hope we all try to be. That high, stoic, guy that looks after everyone and looks after ourselves and wants to be a vessel of love, as he said he tries to be. Notice that it says tries to be, not he is a vessel of love, but he tries to be, the best a man can, as any man can try to be. And so we can't get to that path of redemption if we all just ridicule and shame him, because then we're keeping him in shame cycle, and it's just going to make someone worse. Aside from the therapy they need and the complex relationship that I don't really know much about, and I don't feel is any of my business anyway, but this is just some food for thought on the subject anyway. I'm sure it is. People go, no, he stood up for his wife, fair play to him. No, I'd have done the same. Chris Rock deserves a good smack for crossing the line. Fair enough. I don't agree with that, but I see your point. It's a valid argument to a degree. And same with people saying Chris Rock didn't do anything wrong, and it was completely out of order. I'll say, well, I wouldn't say he'd done something like bad or wrong, but he did explore a boundary and found it works for some people and not for others. So you got to take that with a pinch of salt. You can't insult someone's hair loss that's not in their control, and then when you get smacked in the mouth, go, I didn't do anything wrong. Like, you did, you provoked it. Doesn't mean you can justify the smack in the face you got. Doesn't mean they should have done that and they get to do that. But let's not pretend you're a complete innocent victim and the smack fell out of the sky out of nowhere. So I understand it from both sides. I kind of empathise on both sides. I like to think, if they just sit over it, talk it out over a beer, they can get over it and get past it. But it's going to be hard to do when it's all over the papers and people are screaming their opinions on it and saying it's disgusting and shame on him and all this sort of stuff. So that's my 2 cents on it anyway. I know I'm human and I've done some pretty fucking stupid shit. And I went through all the guilt and the shame and everything. Very few people know about certain things. And I was able to forgive myself, put in the time, because you can't just forgive yourself. You have to go through the shame and guilt, and then you have to really fucking work to make sure it never happens again. You can't just forgive yourself as a pat on the back and act like it didn't happen. It doesn't work that way. But the reason I don't really talk about it is because I know, even though some people will be mature about it, I know a lot of people who just judge me and summarize me as a person that did that one thing, and that's who I am, as like a conclusive thing. So it's a shame. I think when the world's a bit more mature and less judgmental and a bit more encouraging and inspiring and reflective, rather than finger waving all the time, and especially when it's online, you know what people like. And maybe I can open up a bit more about that publicly, but till then, keep it among my friends, myself. I'm past it all, way past it, not a problem, but it's not worth the backlash from the public, to be honest. So for those that are in a safe space to be mature about it, I'll open up with them, no problem. So it's one of them. Anyway, that's enough from me on this boring subject. Let's get back to the important shit. It's a shame this is all over the news way more than, say, like UK and US selling bombs to Saudi Arabia to then be dropped onto hospitals and schools in Yemen. You know what I mean? Like, you'd think that would be a bit more of a, I don't know. Yeah, all try not to go around slapping people, even if you feel they deserve it, you know. I mean, for self-defense, fair enough. Let's not be all complete hippie about it. You'll never ever hurt a fly. Like, no, sometimes it's called for. You know, if someone's trying to fucking take your wallet, it's fair game to smack them in the mouth. If they made a joke about you, step back, let them know you ain't going to tolerate that shit. You appreciate that they're just trying to be playful and they're not trying to directly attack you, because that's what offensive is about. It means to attack, hence opposite of defensive, yeah? But it doesn't mean they're necessarily actually attacking you. It just means you took it as attack. It probably shows more about your insecurities, if anything. But if you feel uncomfortable, they're making you uncomfortable, let them know that they're making you uncomfortable and that you don't appreciate it. And if they keep going after you've warned them and told them, well, then at that point it becomes bullying, and fuck it, smack them one. Maybe that still isn't the best way to go, but it's a bit more justifiable than on the first joke, you know what I mean? So that's my 2 cents anyway. Fucking half a cent, whatever, half a cent. Appreciate that. That's it.